Hey guys, so welcome to another video. Today I'm going to show you how you can export your data from a Fyne desktop application to Excel file. So I have a very simple application here. And what this application does, it allows the user to upload their data, of course bulk uploading their data. And then after bulk uploading it, it's going to be displayed using this simple table here. It's going to be displayed using this simple table. And then after being displayed by the table, we're going to implement this Excel function so that it can be able to export the data displaying by the table to an Excel file. So the upload button, of course, I showed the previous videos on how you can, but it's just a very simple reader function that can be used to upload the data, read it, and then display it to the table. So let me run the application so that you can see how it looks like. It's a very simple application with two buttons. We have the upload data and export to Excel. So you can just click on upload, then you can open the Excel file and it's going to be displayed here. And then we have the export to Excel function. Okay, so in our case, we are going to display it right now. So basically, we're going to implement the Excel function. So of course, this is a function. And then I'm going to provide a dialog. Now since we're exporting, I can just call it save dialog. Then I can provide the dialog. This new file open, but now this is going to be file save. Then I'm going to supply the callback. Because the callback is a write-up because we're exporting, then there's an error here. So basically, when we're working with file save, we have to ensure that there is no error. Of course, in column, we have to ensure that the error is not nil. So if that there is an error, you're going to display it to the user. Okay, apply the error, then we supply my window. So if there is an error, you're going to display it to the user. The next thing you're supposed to ensure is that this writer is not nil. As you can say, if writer, you have to ensure that if it is nil, you're going to supply the error. Okay, if this is nil, just going to turn. Okay, so that nothing happens. And then of course you're going to defer closing the writer. Okay, to curb this error, I'm just going to supply my window because that's what it needs, a parent window, this parent window here. And then after doing that, you're going to create a new Excel file for writing. And in our case, we're using this function called Excelize. Okay, install it, just come and copy this, and then you install. If you want the M2, you just click on the V2. And then once you've installed it, now we're going to define our Excel file. So I can just call it F, and then I can say Excelize. Yeah, this is it. Dot new file. I'm defining a new Excel file. Okay, and then I have also to supply the sheet. Okay, so f dot get sheet, not list, sheet name, and then the index I can just say f dot get active sheet index. Now we're going to use this file and this sheet to write our data. So the next thing we're going to do is to write the tables data into the sheet. And of course, a table has rows and columns, so we have to look through the row, and we also have to look through the column. So we're just going to look through the data. Of course, we're going to look through this data, and then we can just use a for loop. You can just come say for. The first thing we do, we look through an index, the row, of course, for index, and of course the row, range data. Okay, and then we also look through the column and just say call index and then the column value, and then now we are looping through the row. Okay, there's a range here. And then after looping through this, we're going to write it. Of course, when you're writing in Excel, I'm just going to write cell by cell. You get up with it. Also, we are going to write it cell by cell, and we're going to use something called coordinate to cell name. Okay, then we're going to say Excelize dot coordinate to cell name, and then we're going to provide the column, because the column index +1, and the row, we're going to provide the row index +1. And then we're going to say the file that we've created above dot set cell value, and then we provide the sheet that we've defined above, the cell that we've defined above, and the value. Okay, but every time the previous column index +1, so that the next one it prints the next cell, next cell, next cell. That's why we're adding +1 and +1 here. After looping through the data, we're going to save the file in a temporary file, and in this case we can just call it temp path, and then we can just call it data.xlsx. Then of course we're going to save it, okay, in our operating system. So f.save as, then we supply the temp path. Of course we have to ensure there is no error. Just copy this to ensure there is no error, and then after supplying that, we're going to, after saving it in our temporary file, we're going to open it and copy it. Okay, I'm just going to say temp file, so I'm going to open it using the package called IS operating system. First dot open, I'm going to open the temporary file, so I'm going to supply the temporary path, and then we have to also ensure that there is no error, and then we're going to defer temp file dot close. I'm going to defer closing the temporary file until we're done. Okay, then the next thing we're supposed to do, we're going to copy it. Okay, we're going to copy it into our writer, the writer that we have defined up here. Okay, we have to copy it into the writer that we have defined there. Yes, sina hizo vitu hazifanyi kazi bana kabisa. Hizi zangu zote zimenini, hazifanyi. We're going to copy it to our writer, and then we're going to, of course, we're going to copy it to our writer. We're going to copy the temporary file into our writer and ensure that there is no error, and then finally we display an information dialog to the user because we have successfully export all these successfully, then we're going to display, and then data exported to Excel. I can just say something like that. Then we supply my window. And then the next thing we're going to do is you're going to take this save dialog, and then we're going to say save dialog dot show. Okay, so basically that's how you use export to Excel. Okay, you define your writer. By defining your writer, you have to check for errors, ensure that the writer is not nil, and if it's nil, return nothing, and if the error is there's an error, you display it to the user. Then you define your Excel file, then you loop through your data, and then you write into each cell, because +1 ensures that it's moving from one cell to another, and then you copy it into a temporary file, open it, and then you copy it into your writer, so we can run it and see how it works. Okay, let's upload the data. Let's export it. Okay, it's not displaying the file name. Okay, we're supposed to say save dialog dot set file name to data dot xlsx. Okay, let's upload it again. Then let's export. Okay, let's overwrite it, and then we can come here, find .xlsx. Yeah, so basically that's how you do it. You can bulk export your data. Then of course sheet 1 is the default, so that's why it's letting it into it. So basically guys, that's how you can export your data, bulk export of course to Excel. And of course when you're in an actual application, this one is preferable you do it in a Go routine, so that it doesn't interfere with the entire application. So see you in the next video.